Hey everyone, welcome to Uncomplicate by Freshworks, where we answer one question every day with one expert. So, in case you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So, today I have a special guest, an investor, a writer, who's been featured in Forbes Inc. magazine, a very special person, and someone who I have admired for a very long time. Heather, welcome to Uncomplicate.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, awesome. So Heather, in care for the uninitiated, she's a very well-known, person in the sales, sales side of business. So Heather, my question to you is, how do you hire for better SDRs?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think there are a few parts to it. One of the things I think that's important, not just for SDRs, but for anyone you hire these days, is that they have good written communication skills. And that's partly because everything is becoming more and more online. So obviously, you still need to have phone calls, you still need to do webinars, etc. But because especially with workforces becoming more remote and distributed, you're going to be in chat, in Slack or some other messenger. You're going to be sending emails. You're going to be sending messages on social. So it's really important that they have good written communication skills. So we actually have some specific writing tests that we give everyone on the sales team at SalesFolk. We also do something like that for basically every role we hire. Because SalesFolk is a cold email company, it kind of makes sense to do that, but this is something I really encourage any company. I guess the other part, which is also important for any job, would be making sure that they have empathy and that they're thoughtful. And also, again, for any hire, that they're resourceful because especially with sales prospecting and being an SDR, it's really important that they can be thorough and they won't stop until they find the right information, whether it's the right contact email, if something bounces or isn't the email they thought, like the person left the company. And that basically they're not going to give up until they get that response. But that doesn't mean being obnoxious. That's where the empathy comes in. Being thoughtful, but you really have to be persistent and resourceful to succeed in sales or really anything in life.
Yes, awesome. So if I'm getting this right, it's more about having the drive to be a bit more empathetic and having a great communication skill. So you just mentioned about having a specific kind of test or a way to test how good the candidate is in written communication. So can you give me an example of things that you do at SalesFolk?
Yeah, and I'm gonna take out my earring because it's banging around my AirPod, and I don't want it to screw up the audio. So so obviously you can do things in the interview itself, like ask specific questions. But yeah, so what we have for specifically for SDR, we have a multi-step writing test. Basically, actually, we have a research test too. But the writing test is writing an email, basically as if they were selling SalesFolk. That's one part. I think there's another part that is as if it was your company because, obviously someone should prepare when they're doing a job interview to know something about the company, especially if they're in sales. But at the same time, we realize they're not necessarily going to be able to sell a solution they're not as familiar with as their own. So assuming they're already a salesperson, or even if they're not, and they're trying to be, since SDR is kind of like an entry-level role, we also have them attempt to write an email like they're selling their own company. I'm not sure if we still have it or not, but for a while we used to have like cold email anyone that you want that you'd like to meet, which was kind of cool, but some people kind of took it in a weird direction. So I think we removed that part just because of that, but that was kind of cool. And then I think for SDR specifically, well, I guess it depends on what you're having them doing, but we have a prospecting and like qualifying exercise also where they have to find some information in like a spreadsheet and then decide whether they're qualified or not. But obviously you have to give clear qualification criteria if they're going to do that, because they're not necessarily going to know what it is for your company.
Got it. I think that was a ton of insights. So something that I did a bit of research about you is you're a well-known rapper as well. So why don't you
Oh yeah.
rap for people listening into this show?
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, I'll try to give a PG version since a lot of my music's explicit but funny. Okay, so my rap name is Razzle Khan, so you might hear that in a second. Like Genghis Khan with more pizzazz, but Razzle Khan, the Versace Bedouin, come real far but don't know where I'm going. Badass king of Wall Street. Silver on my fingers and boots on my feet. Always be a goat, not a sheep. Email me at your message at the beep. I kind of had to bleep myself a little bit. I realize there's a bit of profanity in there, but
Yeah. I think, to be put on a spot and to come up with a line that you just came in is amazing. Thank you for joining us today, Heather. It was a pleasure hosting you.
Yeah, no problem. Cheers. Thanks for having me. And if you want to see more of my insights, you can find them on the Salesforce blog, my Forbes column, or my Inc. magazine column. You just have to Google Heather R. Morgan, or Twitter, it's Heather Reyhan, Reyhan. Cheers. Thanks for having me.